Okay, so here's the continuing story. By the way, this is Stephen for the Idiot Quilter. Here's the continuing story or saga or sad tale or tale of the woe and frustration and anxiety and sadness and everything else about my Janome 15,000 Horizon embroidery / sewing machine. Now, if you've been following my little sagas here of woe for the last little while, you know that I've been having a lot of trouble with my machine, and it's been in several times for various levels of repair. Okay? And once again, I want to say that Shirley and Roy at Ultimate Sewing, here where I live, are excellent. This has nothing to do with them. It has no reflection upon them whatsoever. I have come to the conclusion after today's trials and tribulations that the problem is me. I am jinxed. Simple as that. Let me tell you why. So, I got the machine back on Saturday. I got a call on Friday that it was ready. They put it through all kinds of tests. They did do some micro calibration in some of the parts on the machine. I'm not exactly sure what it was that Roy the technician did, but it was something. Shirley made it jump through hoops in terms of testing it for embroidering. And it worked. She showed me the samples. It worked perfectly. No problem. So, our conclusion was, problem was solved. Whatever Roy did with these micro calibrations or whatever it was, fixed the problem. Yay. Now, the proof is in the pudding, because I wasn't completely convinced that it would work for me when I got it home. In fact, with the way my luck has been going on this stupid machine, I figured it wouldn't. So I brought it home Saturday afternoon. I did not do anything on it Saturday afternoon. I wanted to have a nice Saturday evening. I didn't want to be bugged by this, because this is getting my goat. Okay? I'm actually having nightmares around this machine. I know, drama queen, whatever. So, this morning, Sunday morning, I got up and decided I was going to do the Dimes June door. Now, if you're not familiar with Dimes, that's designs in machine embroidery. They're a big company out there, and what they've been doing lately is been putting out a free embroidery design for what they call Door of the Month. And essentially what it is, it's an applique kind of thing. It makes a little tiny 5x7 little hanging thing. And I've been doing them since they started with them in January. And the idea is, come December, you will have 12 of these doors to do whatever you want with it. My idea was I'd probably put them all together and make it into a wall hanging. Well, the ones in January and February worked out fine and everything. Had a few problems with the one in March. And then, of course, all hell broke loose. And not just on these designs. I'm not blaming the designs or anything. They're a reputable company. They know how to design embroidery patterns and the whole bit. But the one, I had problems with the one for May. So I started to do the one for June. It just came out. And I followed the instructions, and basically each of the doors is pretty much the same in the instructions. So, you know, if you've done one or two of them, you pretty much know how to do the rest of them, because it's still the same basic design. It's just a change in fabric and a little bit of a change in the embellishments that go on it. Okay, so I get it all set up on the machine. Now, what I did not do was I did not touch the way Shirley had set up my machine for her tests. It was using the same needle that she used, which was a Janome blue tip number 11 needle. She had a pre-wound Deco Bob bobbin in the case, and she was using the red dot bobbin case holder. And I've already gone over in the other videos about the red dot, yellow dot, kiss my butt dot, whatever, on all of those things. So I changed nothing. I left it exactly as she had been working with it. And away I went. Now, the one difference was I was using this other pattern. She was using some of the built-in patterns in the machine. Shouldn't make any difference whatsoever. So the first 3 sets of stitches, it worked fine. those were not complicated stitches. The first two were basically straight stitching, just straight line stitching, okay? Nothing really fancy. They were the tack down stitches for the fabric and outline stitches for where you lay the fabric and you trim around it. No big deal. The next one was a satin stitch that went around one of the frames on one of the pieces that's on there. And it worked fine for that. Then I went to the fourth stitch. The fourth stitch was a straight single line. What it was doing was tacking down a piece of fabric onto the design, which you would eventually fold over and then do the design on top of that. No big deal, okay? Done those 100,000 times before. On the other doors, too, okay? Went to do that. Bingo, jam, break the needle, pull up the bobbin case. All the same problems all over again. It marked up my brand new bobbin case again. I've lost track of how many of those things I've replaced in it. $500 worth anyways, okay? Yeah. So I pulled it out. I filed the rough edges down like you do. Set it all back up. Bing, bing, bing. Put in a brand new needle. Same type. Janome blue. They're the ones that are supposed to work with this. No problem. Janome machine. No. No. And to save myself from breaking down in tears right now, I'm going to tell you that I've had it. So I texted Shirley. I hate bothering her, but what can I do? As I said, it's not her fault. She doesn't manufacture the machines. So she got back to me, and here's our latest plan, okay? She said, we're going to change machines. We're going to switch them out. I'm going to take the machine that she loaned me before, her machine at the store, that worked fine for me for the short time I had it, and she's going to keep my machine. And over time, she's going to play with it and do different things. The one difference between what she did with the machine last time was that she used her own hoops, and I'm using my hoops. Shouldn't be a problem, although someone I know mentioned a problem they had once with their machine. It wasn't a Janome 15,000, but their hoop was bent. Well, I looked at my hoops. They're plastic. They're not bent. And I mean, I look after them. So I don't think that's the problem. But I said that to Shirley. So I'm going to take in my hoops to her, and she's going to give me her hoops for her machine. And we'll see what happens. Her plan is she's going to get somebody from Janome in the United States. There's a guy there, a technician, who goes to Japan all the time where these machines are built. And so he, in other words, he's the be-all, end-all, knows everything there is about the machine. Now, she says her technician, Roy, is just as knowledgeable as this guy and knows what he's doing. And I believe that, okay? That is not a question here whatsoever. But the problem is we're doing the COVID thing right now, aren't we? So who knows when he's coming up. So that's why she's going to give me her machine. Now here's the, and she said the other thing is, because they're computerized, it could be a sensor or something like that. And if that's the case, then it's easy to swap out the sensors and put in another one. Okay, that seems oversimplified to me, but then sometimes the simplest things are the things that cause you the most grief, right? So, and she did mention that a few years ago, she'd mentioned this before, she had one machine that was really giving a client a hard time, like me. I don't know if the problems were exactly the same or whatever, but they frigged around with it forever, and finally there was some computerized components that needed to be replaced. They replaced it, and that was a few years ago, and she hasn't had a problem since. Shirley couldn't remember exactly what the problem was, okay? So, here's my problem. On Tuesday, I'm taking the machine back over and we're doing the swap. I'm really nervous. You wouldn't believe how nervous I am about this. I'm afraid I'm going to break her machine. I have all these doubts in myself. I keep blaming myself for all of this, but I'm doing everything right. I know I am. I double check myself. I go through the manual with a fine-tooth comb. I've had the machine for almost 2 years. There shouldn't be this problem. with it. So I decided to do another experiment this afternoon. Walter has a 550E. I set up his 550E. I let him do the threading of it and showed me how to set up his hoops. They're slightly different on that machine than they are on my 15,000. Got it all set up and was doing the door of the month, the dimes door, in it. First thing I noticed was it was making, I put it right at the slowest speed. There's a little brickwork on these patterns, just straight line stitching. That's all it is. The edges of the bricks were coming out curved. And I thought, what's that all about? Now, when I put the program into his machine, it uses a different hoop than my machine, okay? But it's just a question of the size of the hoop, that's all. And I couldn't see why these programs are written, or this embroidery program's written for any Janome embroidery machine. In fact, they write the program for other brands of machines as well. So there shouldn't be any problem. So I don't know why it was coming out like that. Also, it looked to me like it might have been pulling up the bobbin thread a little bit in certain spots, which that's a tension issue. But anyways, I let it do its thing for a while. But then I watched it like a hawk, and I saw that it was not catching the thread properly after in a little bit of time, like after about 3 minutes or so of doing a couple of different like stitch, I don't know what you call them, stitch sequences, okay, for lack of a better term. And so I stopped the machine immediately because I did not want anything to happen to his machine. And I took it out and I looked on the back and could see, yeah, that's not doing what's supposed to be doing. So gave it all back to Walter. Said, screw it. So, in the meantime, I'm not thinking, well, what's different? Well, I am using, as I said before, Battleizer. I don't know if I did say this before. I get all mixed up with this stuff. Battleizer is a batting, okay? It's a very dense batting. You use it a lot in table runners and things like that. And this particular pattern, the dimes door, calls for a layer of batting. And I've used Battleizer before. I find Battleizer is a little better in something like this than the regular batting, because regular batting tends to be a lot looser and it's a little denser, the Battleizer, and the stitches just grab a little better with it. So I was using that in both on my machine and I used it on Walter's machine. Okay, so then I thought, okay, I had one more bobbin left that hadn't been scored, but it was a bobbin I bought on Amazon. It says this is Janome bobbin. It looks exactly like the one that I use for my machine. It's a red dot one, but they were a little cheaper, like half the price, right? So I had bought 2 of these and I hadn't tried them yet. Now I'm a little, iffy, because are they really made by Janome or not? But I thought I'd take a chance. I mean, I figured at this point, what more can I wreck, right? So I put that bobbin in, threaded up the machine, brand new blue tip needle, the whole bit. And this time I decided, okay, I'm not going to do the dime door. I'm going to do another embroidery design that I had done on Shirley's machine when I had it last week. And it came out fine on Shirley's machine. I think I had one thread break and that was it. But that's minor. That's nothing. You do get that every now and then. And I use the same thread, Floriani, the whole bit. Okay? So I'm merrily embroidering along at the slowest speed, again, at the slowest speed. And it is working fine, except I don't know if it's my imagination, but you know how I mentioned in previous videos, I know the sounds of my machine? The sound of the thread coming out of the bobbin with that Amazon bobbin that I bought sounded a little different. Not majorly, but a little bit. But it seemed to be working fine. I think I got through about 4 or 5 thread change, color change sequences, and then it happened. Same old, same old. Needle broke, bobbin case got pulled, the bobbin case got marked up. Yeah. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe it has to do with Battleizer. But it should have gone through. I mean, I've used Battleizer many, many, many times in the past with certain projects that you do. So, anyways, so I said, nope, screw it. I'm taking it in on Tuesday. I'm going to get Shirley's machine. We'll make the exchange. I'll play with it. But I'm going to say to Shirley, what happens if I wreck it? What happens if your machine does this? Like, I'm really afraid of that. I'm really uptight about the whole thing. I really am. And just to add a little bit more fire to my fuel here, or a little more fuel to my fire, can you see I'm a little frustrated? Yeah. Walter's upstairs now, using his 550E and doing that pattern that I just had a problem with, the Dimes door for June. And it's working. No problems. Not only that, just to add a little bit more to the whole story, he's doing it at top speed. And funny thing is, at top speed, there's no curvature that I was talking about before in the brickwork that it lays down. They're coming out square like they're supposed to. I am so completely mystified right now about all of this. Mind you, he's not using any Battleizer. He's never done one of these before. But he's just doing straight embroidery on fabric with the stabilizer. We're using the same stabilizer as well. So, and he's using Floriani thread. And he's using a red dot bobbin. He is using a Floriani embroidery needle as opposed to a Janome one. But I was using Floriani embroidery needles for the longest of time. Only recently with these problems did I switch over to try the Janome needles. So that's where I'm at right now. One of the other problems that compounds all of this is the amount of money I have spent over the last year and a half on embroidery patterns, embroidery threads, all that stabilizer, all that kind of stuff. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Well, actually, it amounts into the thousands now. So there I am. This COVID thing could go on for quite a long time, so I may never see the guy from Janome. Meanwhile, I have Shirley's machine. And it's not my machine. I don't want to wreck somebody else's machine. So, my problems are not solved yet. And I'm running out of money to spend on this, basically. You know, it's costing me a lot. I wish I had never seen an embroidery machine. I wish it had no appeal to me at all. I wish I had never got into embroidery. That's the way I feel right now. So, that's the continuing saga. If anybody else has had problems with their Janome machines that are similar to this or whatever, whether they're embroidery machines or regular machines, maybe you'd like to share some of that information, because I have seen people share their problems on the Janome site, as I've said before, and Janome doesn't acknowledge any of those things. Not at all. I guess we don't speak Japanese. I guess that's what it is. I don't know. They don't. But they're probably not the only one. Probably all the other big manufacturers handle it the same way. It's kind of like buying a car. Once it's off the lot, you're screwed. I guess. I just thank goodness for Shirley and Roy, because they are the only bright light in all of this right now. Okay, thanks for letting me rant. Stay tuned for more updates as they happen, if I'm not completely bonkers by then and they put me away. Oh, I should have just stuck to paper crafting. Had a lot less problems. Bye.